So, welcome to another episode of the Jobs for Women podcast. I am really excited to welcome Kat Parsons to the podcast this week. Kat is Head of Diversity, Inclusion and Belonging for ISS UK and Ireland, a thought leader who has experience driving company-wide cultural change and inclusion where all colleagues feel they belong. Kat is responsible for the strategic oversight of the ISS employee resource group structure, as well as supporting the ERGs globally. With a diversity and inclusion budget, Kat is responsible for the creation and execution of the company's D&I campaigns, which include International Women's Men's Day, Pride Month, November, Black History Month, as well as a big focus on events online with abilities, generations and age and veterans. Kat's passion and drive for change led her to create the ISS Menopause Awareness Project, which has won various awards, and Kat has been shortlisted for the Inspiring Women in H&S Award. So what an introduction. There's loads we can talk about just in there. I definitely want to talk about menopause, but I just wanted to start with a little congratulations because I know you've also just been recently shortlisted at the DEI Tech Awards for Head of Diversity and Inclusion. How exciting!
I know, very exciting. Yes, we've actually been nominated for 4 different awards for that one, which is fantastic. So hopefully,
how does it feel to be recognised for the work that you're doing?
I think it's a long time coming. I feel, again, I'm quite new to this industry. I'm 3 years into facilities management. I've only been in my diversity inclusion role for 12 months almost. So it's always sort of been something that's bolted on the side of my career, not my actual career. So to actually get sort of recognition for that as my day-to-day job is brilliant.
Amazing. I did want to ask you about that then. So throughout your whole career, has diversity, equity, equality, inclusion always been a strong factor in your career, and now it's sort of the main job?
I think it's been lacking, actually. I think it's the exact opposite. The beginning of my career was in environmental consultancy, so a lot of oil and gas, automotive, obviously very male-dominated environments. And there was a lot of, a number of females at the same sort of level as I was in terms of sort of supervising works on site, but all of the teams were male. The guys in the office were male. Everywhere I went, it was men. So actually, it was very lacking in terms of even basics from like toilet facilities on sites, horrendous. Really having to work hard to get that respect. That you were the person turning up on site in charge of the works, and there'd be this sort of drop of the face that, oh no, they've sent a woman. This is going to take forever. She's going to be all picky. So you had to almost have that elevator pitch of, here's who I am. I'm here to do this job. I'm trained and competent to do it, get that across in 30 seconds, throw a few swear words in to make sure you're included. And then you were sort of left to get on with the job and, sort of fit in with the rest of the team on site. So it very much was lacking. But as I sort of moved through my career, I realized, how important it is to feel included, and it gets the best out of everyone. If you feel included and you belong in a business, you'll go above and beyond, for that company. And again, it's best for your career and best for them. But the fact that was lacking, I think that's something that I've been striving to rectify for quite some time. And now I'm in this position, I can do that. So
yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like you recognise that there's a need for it, and it's almost like you store it away, don't you? And you think, this has to change in the future. So to make that, then based on your experiences, to make that, such a strong point in your career now is really exciting. It's funny because our Women in Property Awards, that came up a lot. We had a QS on, and she was saying she'd go on site and she'd be like, "Where's the ladies?" And they'd look at her blankly like, "What?
The what?" Yeah. No, that's the special toilet or the store cupboard or, awful.
Crazy. So then that leads us on to, so you've been in role for 12 months. Was it a brand new role that they created for you?
Absolutely, yeah. So it was on the back of the menopause project. So I was in health and safety before, and the big focus on health and well-being. And at the time, my wife was perimenopausal, and we didn't realise at all. She'd sort of spent 4 years very anxious, depressed, getting at the end of the day, and I'd say, "Oh, I've had a great day, I've done this," and she'd be like, "Oh, another awful day." And it was only after, obviously, you feel really naive, actually, a bit stupid. 2 women, you would have thought that we would have kind of gone, "Oh, maybe this is the menopause. She's, just around the sort of age of 50. But we didn't. And so I took it into work and basically said, I'm living with someone who's really struggling. And then I looked around the FM business, and, there's a lot of women that I do work with, and no one was saying anything. So yes, I did this big campaign. Everyone was then talking about it. And then this role came up. They wanted to sort of, put some actual focus on it as a business to show we were doing something. And I got offered the position, I initially said no because because again, it's that thing, isn't it, about, I think the whole way through my career, you have to, you feel you have to tick, if there's a list of 10 things, I feel I need to tick at least 9.5 of them to say that I'm competent to do the job. Well, I thought, well, I'm going to be a bit of a one-trick pony here. Yeah, okay, I've conquered the menopause, so to speak. But how do you replicate that across all of the dimensions of diversity? That's absolutely massive. So it took a little bit of convincing to, that I'd be able to do it. And, a lot of people were championing me. So, I took the job, and I haven't looked back. It's been brilliant.
It's great that they recognised and sort of pinpointed that they wanted you to do it. And well done on being so proactive with like personal experience of the menopause, supporting your wife and actually doing something about it. And I think it's interesting what you said about, you work with a lot of women and no one was sort of talking about it. It's like this taboo thing, isn't it? It's like periods.
Oh, massively.
And it's like, why is it so taboo? Like my dad and I were laughing the other day because on my wedding speech, he was like, he even mentioned my periods growing up because it was like the running banter of our house because mum and I have bad periods. But I look back on that and think, I'm so lucky that I could grow up and be so open. But people, close off, don't they? And don't share what they're going through at work. And it's so important, isn't it? To,
Absolutely.
like you said at the beginning, to enjoy your job and be the best at it if you feel sort of supported. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, I love in your intro about wanting employees to feel sort of a sense of belonging. That word, I'm assuming there was a strategic choice for using that word of belonging. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's around the fact that, as a person in my role, I can pump diversity into a business. I can look at the data and say, oh, well, we need more of this and more of that, and this is lacking. I can absolutely push the right buttons in the business to get those people in. The next piece is around feeling included. If you don't feel included, that person's going to be in the business for 6 to 12 months, and then they're going to go, this is not for me, I do not fit in this space. And the calculation, I suppose, of that diversity and that inclusion, that's when you feel like you belong. And that is the magic where, people can have an open conversation. You don't have to ring in sick, or I've got a bit of a tummy bug, but actually my period pains are horrendous.
Yeah.
I always ring in to my boss and say, look, just give me a break today because horrendous period pains. And she'll be like, absolutely fine, not a problem at all, rest up, whatever. I can do that. I don't have to hide away and say, fabricate, why I'm not on firing at 100%, which is what I do all the time. So
exactly. And it's kind of like being able to be transparent and have those open conversations, which I know a lot of organizations, people aren't able to do. So that's great that you've sort of opened that doorway. And that's interesting what you said about almost like those people, if they're not feeling this sense of belonging, that they might leave. So companies, in a way, they need to go through an equitable recruitment process. But I guess it's once they're in position, how do companies make sure that staff feel like they belong? Is there anything you can talk about what you guys specifically do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Again, diversity inclusion's the rave topic at the minute. Again, every business is employing a head of, which is fantastic. People are realizing they need to take it seriously. But it's a little bit like pride washing. When it comes to Pride Month, everyone, emblazons their logos with pride rainbows. And it's great for a month, then everyone forgets about it.
Yeah.
The key for what I'm trying to do at ISS, which is working really well, is that it's not just a case of having the big pizzazz and look at the awards we've gone for and this sort of thing. It's actually taking that, and once that person's in the business, it's then giving them that space. So these employee resource groups that have been set up, there's 6 of them, so everyone has a bit of a space where they can go and either have a vent, or they can say, look, my experience of coming into the business as someone who's neurodiverse, or someone who's gay, or someone who's older, coming in, we've got a lot of people coming back in their sort of 50s and 60s back into the workplace. This is my experience of entering the business, and I think you could improve in this way and this way. That's absolutely golden for me. That's the answers are there. So why would you not listen to those people to say, right, if we make these changes in our processes and our procedures and our whatever it is, you've then fixed that little problem for that person, but it obviously then fixes it for others in the same category. So
yeah, feedback is so important, isn't it? It's like when companies let employees leave and it's like they don't do an exit, like,
absolutely,
we need that data. It's like you said, a great word. It's absolute golden, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just jumping back to the menopause, because I posted something on LinkedIn about the government not backing not putting the funding behind this extra time off for women to support them in menopause. What happened at ISS? What extra support do women get for that?
We've done quite a lot, actually, and I think a lot of it was around just creating that environment where you could say the word menopause first and foremost. A lot, again, in terms of the data of our business, we're in a transition at the minute. It is very male dominated in certain areas and certain levels of the business. I'm absolutely got a handle of that. It's not that we're saying as a business we're 57% female, which is fantastic if you look at it as a statistic. But when you break that down in terms of the level of the business and where they're sat, we don't have those people in security and infrastructure and engineering. That's very male dominated still. So we're breaking those barriers down, and there's work happening to get that gender balance. But it was also, so again, as a woman coming into work, to be able to say, it's the whole effect on your mental health. It's on absolutely everything. And again, for me, from a partner point of view, it was almost as important to get the topic out there for partners because it affects everyone. So being able to get the line managers to have a conversation with someone to say, right, I understand menopause, talk to me, what do you need, what alterations do you need, what amendments? I used to have someone in my team who could never have a call before 10 o'clock in the morning because she just wasn't switched on. And again, she'd say that very openly, don't ring me before 10 o'clock because I'm not alert and wide awake. So it's my job as her line manager. If I saw a meeting pop in for 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd be like, no, so it wasn't that she then had to say, oh God, I'm glad to do this meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was there to have her back to say, I'm afraid I'm not available at this time. How about 10:30?
That is so refreshing. Isn't that amazing? When I did that post on LinkedIn, a man messaged me actually and just said, thank you so much for sharing this. I feel like I need to understand it more to support my wife. And I feel like now I'm reading into it, I can understand what she's going through. And it was like a bit of a light bulb moment, like you say. It's the support network, isn't it? It's not just the person going through it. It's the line managers being aware. It's people at home. It's such a big thing. So well done on getting that passed at ISS. Yeah. So one of your specialisms that I really want to talk about is this idea of cultural change, which I want to delve into. I did a TikTok actually on the McKinsey 2022 report, and honestly, it blew up. All my other TikToks are just okay, and then this one just went crazy with lots of opinions. But in that McKinsey report, they talk about women's experiences in the office of belittling microaggressions, such as having judgment questioned or being mistaken for someone in a more junior role. And they also talk about conscious and unconscious bias. What do you think companies can do to change a culture? If I guess it's twofold. If they're aware that there's a culture that needs to be changed, or whether they are changing the culture because they feel like they have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a massive question. And again, I think it depends what industry you're at in as well. Again, whether it's male dominated or not. From my experience, a lot of it is getting others to speak up. So again, it's making people understand their privilege. And I do a lot of work along sort of privilege. And again, you speak to a lot of guys and they'll be like, I don't understand this. It's hiring the best person for the job. Treat everyone the same. That's fine. It's not about treating everyone the same. That's the whole point, isn't it? Again, it's that equity piece that people need different levels of support, different levels of change in the business. But from my point of view, again, if I delve back into my early career, it was quite blatant issues I had on site. Again, working in these male-dominated environments. I once was on. Again, it was. Contaminated land is what I used to work in. So basically, I used to walk around in hard hat and rigger boots all the time, putting mud in a jar or water in a bottle. And I absolutely loved it. I loved being out and about all the time. And again, I sort of did slot into that. It was that chameleon effect of slotting in with the guys, and I could banter and it was, and yes, I did enjoy it at the time. But looking at back, some of the comments that I would have made and the language I would have used, I would never have used that now. But there was one specific day where everyone found this very amusing. I was basically like hands and knees. With mud, just trying to bail mud out of a manhole cover, basically was what was happening for a remediation project. And this little old guy walked past me and he said, and he noticed, I have short hair, shaved sides. This is what I looked like at the time as well in a hard hat. So I get mistaken for a guy all the time when I was on site. And he was like, oh, you're a woman. And I was like, yeah. And he said, oh, what are you doing this job for? Wouldn't you much rather work in a shoe shop? Oh. I was like, this was like the worst thing to say to me ever. But everyone around me, my whole team, there was probably about 10, 15 people there, all just thought it was absolutely hilarious. There was no sort of like, actually, she's in charge of the site. She, if she says this happens and this happens, there was no sort of like jump in
Uh-huh.
to sort of, to reinforce who I was in that situation. So I think that's almost what companies need, is that firstly to understand your privilege. And if any one of those guys on site had gone, mate, but actually, and then put some elevation between, about who I was, then that would, I think it would affect everyone.
That's
Absolutely.
so that exactly. Did you call out his comment at the time, or did you just let it slide?
No, I called it. I couldn't. I used to get them all the time. What's in your call box? Is it sandwiches? Are you off for a picnic? It was all this sort of like, oh, what, you're in charge? Yes, no, I am in charge. It was constant all the time on those sites. So it was that sort of straw.
Calling out behaviour is so important. That's come up. We did, I think, women in property, and there was head of law at EG Garages, and she said she was in a meeting and a man used sort of derogatory language. She didn't go into detail, and she said, in that moment, I thought, shall I call this out? Shall I call this out? And she just said, even though I was like, oh no, she did it in front of the whole room.
Oh, well done.
And we talked about that grassroots change, that using your voice has this ripple effect to make the change, because the man in the room recognized, hopefully, and then the effect on everyone else. So it's really important.
I think I almost used to push so far the other way. So again, because I was the woman on site, and they were like, are you making the tea? I would never make tea.
Yes.
Even if I wanted tea, I wouldn't make it, because it was almost like, can you make the tea? No, I wouldn't. So it's only when I really knew a team that I had that respect, and again, we had that mutual, okay, that's fine, then I would go and make them a cup of tea. But it was the expectation that, right, we're on site now, and they'd be tapping their watches, they'd be gasping, I'm so thirsty. Right, never, not going to happen.
I think I'd have been like you, actually, almost go so the other way. That's what I'm like with the kids when they want something, and I'm like, absolutely not. That actually came up in our survey, International Women's Day. We've got all these comments from amazing women that are sharing their experiences, and one was very senior in the board meeting, and asked to take the minutes and make the tea. It's like, what?
Absolutely,
it's crazy, isn't it? But it's still happening all the time.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you've helped shape the company ISS with the work that you're doing? I mean, I guess you have, massively.
I think they haven't had much choice. I bang on about stuff all the time, and actually now having these employee resource groups, I was very clear when I took the role as well that I am one person with one voice, and after a while it's going to get very boring. So the fact of having these employee resource groups, each one has a co-chair, one from Ireland and one from UK, that now I delegate. So a lot of the talks, there's a lot of happening for International Women's Day, obviously, in a couple of weeks. We just had World Cancer Day. I basically farm out, we'll have a conversation about, what we're doing as business, what the direction is, but then the voice is then from those chairs, from those employee resource groups, to then spread the word, because again, their perspective is going to be different to mine, as is, everyone's perspective is going to be different. But again, at least it's showing that message is coming out. It's not just me, my voice, ISS, this is what we're doing. It's across the whole business.
That's a great idea. And I think other companies could take that on board. What advice would you give to other companies if a company came to you that really needed to like ramp up their commitment and their active approach to DE&I? What would be like top tips? How could companies make change?
That's a good question. I am, if you ask anyone, I'm literally 0 to 100 miles an hour. I don't do and this is why my wife is brilliant, because she's very measured, so I get reined in quite a lot, and that's the perfect combination for the two of us. But I would go for a big hard-hitting statement first, and that's why it worked really well for the menopause, because it was so uncomfortable, and everyone was like, oh my God, what is she doing? And I was getting senior men to have conversations with me as well on podcast format, so that they were saying the words as well, which was then making it more acceptable for their teams. So it was making those safe spaces, that psychological safety. But that very quickly allowed us to tackle other topics. So we now talk about male suicide, we're talking about prostate cancer, we're talking about baby loss. These things are now easier because we've already done it once, and we've broken the back of, we can now talk, and people talk about the menopause. I can hear about it on a daily basis. People's symptoms, their HRT patches, and it's great that they feel that they can open up, and that's brilliant. But now again, we're hitting those hard topics, and actually to be able to hear people struggling and, you know, people showing their emotion in the workplace around things like male suicide is amazing that people feel that they can be that open in that space, and that allows us to give them the support they need through our employee assistance programs, etc. So we're supporting, and we're not just going, okay, hear what you're saying, let's signpost outside the business, and good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just a tick box exercise, it's actually happening, and that's it, isn't it? The conversations continue to happen. If you're hearing the word menopause, and you've done your job, because when I do think this is coming up as well, we're working with organizations that want to recruit and attract more women in underrepresented industries. And some companies do take a tick box approach, tick, and then it goes in the drawer or it gets filed away. And it's like actively doing the doing and like you say, talking about it, using those words. That's great that you're doing the other initiatives like male suicide. That is incredible.
And again, that piece you said, again, it's nothing worse than a tick box. And again, the amount of times I've gone through my career and it's been like, she's a woman as well, tick the box, and you know that you're just ticking a box. But then again, there's nothing around that. There's no sort of, I'd never had an employee resource group or a space, again, being LGBT as well. That made it even more difficult in my early career. You know, I had to sort of, you know, do you tell people, oh God, she's gay? Oh God. Again, it's just was, you know, the amount of comments I used to get all the time was just horrendous, but there's no support around that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, you should write a book. Have you read the book, This Is Going to Hurt? I think it's Adam Kay, and it's all of the things that he experiences as junior doctor. As a junior doctor, you should write a book. That would be amazing. So I know we have to wrap up soon. One of your posts that I just wanted to ask you about was, all of your posts on LinkedIn are incredible. But I loved it when you recently said that someone referred to you as an influencer, but not so much in a kind way. And you said things like, actually, I am someone who now takes up space after decades of moving over for others, someone that's found your voice, learned to stand up for yourself. And I just wanted to sort of end our amazing chat on this, in that what you're doing is sort of paving the way for companies and for people to be more heard, to feel like they belong. Can you talk us a little bit more about that comment and the subsequent post that you wrote?
Yeah. So again, I think it was in a term of influencer, and at the time I took offence to it. But when I sort of reflected on it a bit more, again in my early career, is that thing about coding and chameleoning yourself into the room and the shape that you're in. And again, I do think that benefited my career. I can talk to anyone from board level to engineers in a dirty basement. Like I can flex and have those conversations to get, you know, what's needed out of the conversation. So I wouldn't change anything about my career path. I just am very aware that, again, from my experience of being sort of held back, you know, oh, your delegation skills aren't the best, or oh, your report writing's not the best. You know, you're being sort of held in these, you know, so you're squashing yourself to the detriment of probably my own career. So now that I've got this sort of space to sort of spread my wings, as it were, I'm taking up all the space that I think I've never taken before. The last 38 years of space is now coming out. So again, I think it's around that, and this is something that we're doing a lot at ISS, is around that vulnerability and that empathy, and the amount of people in the business that are opening up about their own personal stories. There was a guy recently who was telling us about his brother who had committed suicide, you know, people with really difficult backgrounds. Again, for me, sharing all the stuff that I've tried to hide quite a lot over the last however many years of being, you know, out in the industry, the impact that has on other people. And I get messages all the time from, you know, I'll put a post out about, again, mental health, or about, you know, being out and about with my wife and not feeling I can hold her hand, for example, because of the environments we're in. That obviously resonates with people. And again, it gives people that space that you've already started the hard conversation, and then they just have to fill in and give their opinion. And 9 times out of 10, you know, it's lovely comments. And again, people really championing. And you will get the ones that, you know, do not agree at all, and they are the polar opposite, and they want to tell you that in many words. But again, I think that's part of it. And again, I've had to have quite a thick skin over my career anyway, from, you know, again, all these comments about working in shoe shops, for example. So again, you know, bit of a, you know, water for ducks back, try not to take it personally, but it spurs me to carry on. So yeah, I literally post pretty much every day, and I try and post on the most taboo topics that I've had experience of, to help other people.
Yeah, well, and you know what? You do exactly that. You help me, you help loads of others. It's honestly, Your posts are so refreshing, and I literally look forward to them, because this sense of belonging as well. Like, my kids have just turned 8 and 6, and we talk a lot about, not having to be like other people, and owning who you are. Like, my little boy loves football, and he wears like a little footballer band, and he gets comments like, "That's a girl's hairband," and then he stopped wearing it, and I was like, "Don't stop wearing it. Like, you are you, and I am me." And I love this idea of, the more we talk about it, the more it spreads, doesn't it? I talk about this ripple effect, and same for kids. And we could talk all day. The whole, how we raise our children and stuff. But honestly, keep doing what you're doing. The work you're doing is inspiring, and your LinkedIn posts are amazing. If you don't follow Kat on LinkedIn, you need to get your butt over to LinkedIn now and follow her. If anyone wants to connect with you to find out what's happening at ISS or what you're doing, what's the best way?
Drop me a note through LinkedIn. I'm on it every day. So yeah, I will happily have a chat.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. Nice to see you.